is it possible for socialists within Labour to win back the party? Yes, only 18%. So of the people who watch this show, not very many believe it is possible to win back the party. And I'm surprised even 18% think that anyway. But the next one, is it worthwhile for socialists in Labour to stay in the party to influence Labour policy? Yes, 31%. I mean, maybe there is some influence, I don't know. This is probably the most amazing finding of the survey. These are all people, I mean, these are not going to be right wingers, particularly watching this show. But do you think the Labour Party is the lesser of two evils? No, 38%. Yes, 34%. So more people think that the Labour Party is not the lesser of two evils than do, which is pretty shocking. If you're a Labour supporter, and here we are. Would you prefer a Starmer-led Labour government to a Tory government led by Sunak? We've got yes, 35%, no, 22%. So Sunak's obviously still not that popular. But look, I've got. I'm going to bring on Deepa Driver and Dr. Bob Gill to talk about the fact that lots of people don't actually. Hi, Deepa. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, Crispin. How are you?
I'm good. The fact that more people think that Labour is not the lesser of two evils than do shows that something's shifting. Do you think that would be the case? Do you think that now is the time that people are realizing Starmer is a danger? Because I keep thinking, if we don't hold Starmer to account and stop him getting into power, we could have a terrible situation with him as the Prime Minister, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to all your other speakers, and there are a couple of things that I was thinking. Number one, why is it that so many people, despite the fact that they could see so much wrong with Blair, and as John said, and more recently that we can see so much wrong with Starmer, have stayed within the Labour Party? And for people who are employed by the Labour Party, I can understand it's their livelihood, and so finding another job is difficult. People who are members of the Labour Party, it's a slightly different story, because for people who've been in a particular organisation for 40, 30, 50 years, it is their social circle as much as it is their political space. So I think there is a great fear of leaving it, and an attempt, and I apologize to Andy, who spoke before, for seizing on something he said, but an attempt to justify why Keir Starmer might be better than the Tories, or why we think we should do this, or justify to oneself that it's okay to stay in the Labour Party because we're doing this for other people. But actually, we're not doing anything for working class people, because if you look at Keir Starmer, I mean, we know that the 10 pledges, each of them was a lie, right? We also know that he's actively evil in the way he behaves within the Labour Party, and in the way the circle around him, whether it is Gurinder Singh Josan, whose tweet you showed, he's the head of the NEC complaints procedures, I think.
Yeah.
All of these people, how they speak about not just Jeremy Corbyn, but how much disrespect and disregard they have for democracy and the membership. So the reason people are staying, despite knowing that Labour will support war, Labour will support privatization, Labour will support the oppression of Palestinians, Labour will support the destruction of of the economy, all of these things, the reason why people stay in it is because they feel they have nowhere else to go where they have the same circles. And a lot of people I know who have left the Labour Party feel cut adrift because they don't have to organize their lives anymore around the Labour Party. So to some extent, sorry, I'll get to my point, and I'm sorry I'm rambling a bit, Crispin. So that's the membership. And then why are the MPs staying within the party, the Socialist Campaign Group? Because somebody said earlier, oh, they don't have any principles. Well, actually, or that they're entirely careerist. If they were entirely careerist, they would be doing what Miliband and others are doing, right? They wouldn't be at least standing up for these socialist ideals in a token form. Or John McDonnell, for example, wouldn't be standing on our picket lines. You know, I've seen him on our picket lines. The reason they're doing it is because they still have some small commitment towards the socialist ideals, but they feel that they will not be able to get a seat in parliament without the money and the support of the Labour Party. And
Right.
these three different things. And I think that what we need to do now is to have a shared manifesto where we build on the 2017 manifesto, we agree a plan, and if we are not able to construct a party with the, not just the support structures, but the financial depth of the Labour Party, I mean, financial depth given they've given money away to so many people, but whatever that is, we need to still stand candidates, and Jeremy, as Chris said, needs to head up that slate of independent candidates, because it will, in my opinion, it will support him if he can stick with his principles of never kind of running a party against Labour, but still having an independent coalition of people who agreed to, because the problem with independence is you don't know what they stand for, you don't have a track record, they don't agree to a manifesto. That's not to say that Labour or all these people who stood on a Labour ticket agreed to any manifesto and stood by it. But at least we can have an agreed position. I don't believe in this idea that Ken talked about earlier. I mean, huge respect for Ken, but I don't believe in his idea of shadow CLPs, because who's going to do all this organization and all this work for no end? Right? Who's going to do the work it takes? Whether you're in a trade union or a CLP, there is a huge amount of work that goes into organizing beforehand. And if you think your policies, processes are not going anywhere, nobody's going to do it. So I think we just have to get good people, get them to stand. They will not be kings, but they will be kingmakers. And hopefully we can change the direction. And, you know, I heard what people said about grassroots organizing. And, you know, I'm a grassroots trade unionist, but grassroots trade organizing isn't enough. What Momentum is saying, in my opinion, the stuff that they've put out recently, it's just absolutely inadequate. It's absolutely useless, because what we need to do in terms of grassroots organizing is also have some control of the seats of power. And you're not going to get that through the Labour Party by training people up to be councillors and then finding that none of them get selected. In my
Exactly.
itself, so many people didn't get selected. I'll stop there. Thanks for.
No, it's true. Thank you, Deepa. Thank you, Dr. Bob Gill, for coming on, because we've talked a lot about the NHS in the past few weeks, several weeks. Now, I don't get the feeling that a Starmer government would be any better for the NHS than a Tory government, and I don't really even feel that there's anything wrong with campaigning to stop Starmer in itself. Do you think that that's a worthwhile pursuit?
Hi, Crispin. Yes, I think you're exactly right. We have two neoliberal parties who, in opposition, might say one or two words we could agree with, but when they're in power, the policy stream is the same. You know, Tony Blair killed off the Labour Party. He removed its soul, clause 4. So the gloves are off. The problem is the people who aren't paying as much attention as we are will be lulled into a false sense of security that supporting Starmer will somehow achieve something. But what Wes Streeting and Starmer have said and done already does not fill me with any hope whatsoever. In fact, I dread them coming in and getting control of the NHS, because they're doubling down on public-private partnerships. They don't have any objection to more outsourcing, and they have failed to address the number one issue at the moment, which is staff wages, because the NHS is hemorrhaging staff. You know, Every junior doctor I speak to is looking for an exit. So we have an NHS which is collapsing, which is hemorrhaging its workforce. And what do Starmer and Wes Streeting say? We don't support the strikes. This is lunacy. I'm afraid a lot of the people who are dedicated to the Labour Party, on top of the reasons Deepa has outlined, which I totally agree with, is a form of Stockholm syndrome, a sense of wanting to belong to something rather than belong to nothing. This is a complete waste of their time. And unfortunately, people like Momentum and John McDonnell are serving as sheepdogs for keeping people involved in a project which is doomed in terms of addressing the needs of the population, but absolutely on target for enriching these careerist, self-serving politicians. And let us not forget the background of Starmer himself. He's a member of the Trilateral Commission, an organization formed back in the 70s, which said there was an excess of democracy. We're losing the battle for corporate control, and we need to rein in public activism and human rights and a better deal for the population. That is Keir Starmer. What did he do as DPP? He let the establishment off the hook. He was a contributor to the jailer of Julian Assange. You know, if anybody is still left in any doubt of the character and the motives, the motivations of these people, well, you know, what can I say? They need to wake up. The more time we waste trying to change the Labour Party is time we could have spent doing something else, much more useful.